Kurtop here, and these are 100 mysterious photos from space that didn't make it into the textbooks. A photo that shouldn't exist. August 1990. The Scottish wilderness called Calveen. Two guys are taking pictures of the sunset, and by accident, a diamond-shaped black triangle appears in the frame, hovering over the hills. Below, a Harrier military jet seems to be guarding it. The guys take the film to a newspaper. The newspaper sends it to the Ministry of Defense, and the photo disappears for 30 years, 2022. The photograph resurfaces in the closet of a former press officer, carefully pinned to a corkboard. 6 frames, perfect sharpness, shadow, glare, even a patch of cloud, reflected on the body. The nearby jet indicates the approximate scale. The object is about 30 meters across. The Ministry of Defense gives the classic excuse, a fake. But then why is there an archival marking from Dreyfus intelligence staff and a stamp saying not for foreign eyes? And most importantly, why did the photo end up in a classified file at all if it's a fake? Today, this shot is called the best UFO photo in history. Conspiracy theory fans are convinced the British were hiding tests of a black project. Skeptics point to double exposure. But a simple thought dampens both versions. If there was nothing interesting, the photo wouldn't have been classified as secret for 30 years. All we see is just a piece of paper with a light imprint. And what stood in front of the lens still remains unanswered. Whose craft is it? Is it from Earth or an alien? And why did it appear in only 6 frames in the entire history of UFO photo observation? They captured a real alien. It appeared suddenly, the third interstellar visitor flying across the sky. In the solar system, 3I Atlas is not a comet, not an asteroid, not something you can put in a school textbook. Astronomers immediately noticed something strange. The object doesn't reflect sunlight, but seems to emit it on its own. Such behavior doesn't follow the usual laws of physics. A dust cloud surrounds the body, but calculations show something dense and geometrically regular inside. Mathematician Eric Quito and astrophysicist Avi Loeb, the same one who once suggested that Oumuamua could be an artificial probe, raise the uncomfortable question again. If it's not a comet and not a fragment of a star, then what is it? Their model showed that the observed illumination is best explained by an internal energy source. 3. I-Atlas is located between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, 3.5 times farther from the Sun than Earth. But even there, the object remains visible. The closer it gets to the star, the more the color of its surface changes, as if it's reacting. The James Webb Telescope is already pointed at it. And, according to rumors, the data obtained has made scientists reconsider their own observation protocols. If this is a piece of a star, it should have cooled down millions of years ago. If it's a ship, it doesn't resemble any technology known to us. And while official reports are being postponed for revision, there remains an object in the sky that behaves as if it is alive and controlled. For the first time, officials worldwide aren't calling it an optical illusion. Everyone is just waiting. The cosmic owl. In the depths of space, something is looking straight at us. 2 glowing eyes on a black background. And this is not an illusion. Webb captured the collision of 2 ring galaxies. It's so rare that the chance of seeing something like this is less than winning all the lotteries at once. A mass of 320 billion suns in the center, 2 black holes devouring matter, and flashes of new worlds being born. Scientists say it's just a merger. But why do we see the image again? Why does the universe form eyes, symbols, signs? Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's a message, and the question is, who left it? Egypt and UFOs. Thousands of years ago, the Egyptians looked at the sky, and judging by the text, saw more than just stars there. In one of the papyri attributed to Pharaoh Thutmose III, a strange incident is described. A disk of fire that appeared in the air emitted light, hovered motionless, and then soared upward. This text from the Temple Archive was long considered an allegory until it was compared to modern UFO descriptions. On the walls of some tombs, there were symbols that cannot be explained through mythology. Round objects with rays, figures floating in the air, strange capsules over which priests are leaning. They aren't the center of attention but are always nearby, as if part of daily life or fear. The Egyptians believed knowledge literally came from the sky, not just metaphorically. Thoth, the god of wisdom, descended in the form of an ibis, but many texts describe him as shining from a heavenly boat. Osiris came down on a ray of light. Even the term Neteru, which we translate as gods, literally means those who came. Is it a coincidence or a memory of something that arrived once before? If at least some of these coincidences are not fantasies, then perhaps Egypt was not an isolated civilization. It was a beacon for those who came from outside or for those who were meant to return one day. An artifact is more valuable than gold. In 2023 in Carlisle, in the north of England, a unique artifact was discovered at the site of an ancient Roman bath, made from a special substance that was more valuable than gold to the ancient Romans. This item, found by volunteers and archaeologists, is a solid sample of Tyrian purple. To obtain this ancient dye, it was necessary to process about 12,000 mollusks that inhabit the Mediterranean region. Tyrian purple, best known for being produced in the city of Tyre in Lebanon, was valued for its brightness and durability and was used for dyeing clothes and painting walls. The process of making it was complex and labor-intensive, which made this pigment extremely expensive and available only to the upper classes of the Roman Empire. The sample found in Carlisle was used for creating frescoes or dyeing fabrics. This is the only known example of a solid sample of Tyrian purple in Northern Europe, and possibly in the entire territory of the Roman Empire. This discovery not only highlights the complexity and richness of ancient Roman culture, but also contributes to further study of the interactions between ancient civilizations and the spread of their cultural and material achievements beyond traditional boundaries. In the data stream from James Webb, researchers noticed a tiny glowing spot with record-breaking red emission, the oldest galaxy. They decided to check if it was an error in the algorithm, but the calculations were confirmed. In front of them was possibly a galaxy that was born just 90 million years after the Big Bang. They named it Capitoro after an Italian mountain, just as ancient and immovable. If the discovery is confirmed, it will put an end to dozens of theories. According to standard models, in such a short time, the universe simply could not have produced such a massive object. Capitoro shines too brightly for its age and, according to preliminary estimates, contains about 1 billion stars, as if someone pressed the evolution accelerator button. Some scientists suggest that the observed signal is not a galaxy, but a nearby substellar object, like a brown dwarf. But the spectrum doesn't match. Others say that we are seeing something new, an intermediate form of life between a star and an entire system, a primordial framework from which worlds later grow. If Capitoro really is a galaxy, then we are looking at the moment when darkness first retreated, at the birth of the first sources of light that began to disperse the primordial void. While scientists argue about what exactly is reflected in this data, one thing is clear. Each new image from Webb doesn't so much provide answers as it breaks old patterns. The universe behaves as if it deliberately doesn't want to be figured out. El Toro artifacts. Under the name El Toro, hundreds of stone and bone objects, books, and slabs with reliefs are circulating online. Masks, figurines with almond-shaped eyes, tablets with unknown writing. They are allegedly found on the El Toro Hills in Mexico, and the total number of items is said to be anywhere from several thousand to up to 20,000. Some of the artifacts are indeed made skillfully, with neat carvings and recurring motifs. On the other hand, there are no published excavation reports with coordinates, stratigraphy, associated ceramics, and laboratory dates that would allow us to distinguish real antiquities from modern ones. Artifacts from El Toro are often displayed with Peru's Ica stones. This large collection also features out-of-place knowledge themes and faces controversy over authenticity. There are expedition reports from enthusiasts and even mentions of laboratory tests surrounding El Toro, but it never gets to verifiable publications in specialized journals or official museum attribution. As long as there are no proper reports and dates, it's just a big pile of privately owned items. Beautiful, varied, but unsuitable as a source for ancient history. And one more thing. Don't confuse the Mexican El Toro with the Spanish cave Cueva del Toro. The Spanish site is classical archaeology. Layer, context, dates, publications, right down to studies on bone double-pointed tools and Neolithic economy. That's what an evidence base looks like, and that's exactly what the Mexican El Toro lacks. Portals in space. Physics allows for space-time to fold into tunnels, wormholes. They connect points in the universe directly, bypassing millions of light years. On paper, this is the Einstein-Rosen theory. In reality, it's still just equations. But there are too many hints suggesting that these corridors might exist. Astronomers occasionally observe strange phenomena, bursts of radiation that appear and disappear in a fraction of a second, and they happen almost simultaneously in different parts of space, as if the signal didn't travel the usual path but jumped across. Officially, such anomalies are called interference or rare processes in pulsars. But what if these are markers of working portals? Legends also have their own versions. The Sumerians wrote about the gates of the gods. The Maya spoke of celestial paths along which the star brothers returned. Tibetan texts contain descriptions of doors between worlds that open only on certain days. Amazingly, the ancients spoke of the same thing: the possibility of instant travel to places where the usual path is impossible. For a civilization that has learned to control such structures, the galaxy is no longer boundless. There is no need for thousand-year journeys in giant ships. It's enough to step into the right place and emerge at another star. Then the UFO phenomenon becomes clear. They don't have to fly from far away, they simply arrive. There's only one question. If such portals are already operating, where are their entrances? Maybe they're hidden in black holes. Maybe in the depths of the oceans. Maybe right here on Earth, in those very places of power that have been considered forbidden since ancient times. The flesh of the fish. God, in the cliffs of Bandiagara lives the Dogon people. Every 60 years they hold the Sigi festival. The main ritual is to carry out the huge Nomo mask. According to legend, Nomo is an amphibious creature. It once arrived in a copper egg that thundered like a storm. It fell into a lake and came out of the capsule half human, half fish. Nomo showed people star maps. It was indicated there. Next to the bright Sirius, there is another star, dark and very heavy. Astronomers discovered this white dwarf, Sirius B, only in the 19th century, but the Dogon spoke about it long before telescopes, so that his lesson would not be forgotten. According to the myth, Nomo shared his flesh, giving people pieces of his skin as sacred food. That's why the Dogon still call his power Nyama Nomo, the life inside the fish god. They keep clay tablets with a pair of stars in secret sanctuaries. Scientists still can't figure out whether this knowledge is ancient or a later hint from missionaries. But the Dogon themselves are sure the copper egg really did come, and one day it will return when the time for the next one comes. The history of UFOs is always a mix of fear, technology, and myths. Let's keep that in mind and move on. Pre-Columbian airplanes. In Mexico and South America, amazing artifacts were found, known as pre-Columbian airplanes. These miniature gold figurines dating back hundreds or possibly even thousands of years are striking in their detail. At first glance, they look like toys, but their shape is too similar to modern flying machines, such as space shuttles or airplanes. Scientists were especially intrigued by the tail rudders, the symmetrical notches on the wings, and other elements that would have no practical purpose in a toy. This raises the question, what served as the basis for creating these figurines? The only plausible explanation is that the craftsmen were copying what they saw. It is possible that these artifacts are a reflection of real events, when the inhabitants of ancient America observed the flights of mysterious craft. Some researchers link these findings to theories about ancient astronauts, claiming that aliens, the Anunnaki, or representatives of another civilization visited Earth and left their traces. The mystery of these little airplanes is further deepened by another fact. Modern engineers have managed to create models based on these artifacts, and when an engine is added, they are actually capable of flying. What is this? Is it a coincidence, an ancient myth, or evidence of technologies that came from other planets? Unicorn horn. First of all, the unicorn. This creature, although mythical, faced cruel treatment from humanity. People hunted unicorns for their magical horns, which, according to legend, had unique properties, such as the ability to purify water and remove poison from food. Unicorns were believed to exist according to the testimonies of many ancient scholars, including Aristotle and Cataclysms, as well as great minds like Leonardo da Vinci. In the Middle Ages, unicorns symbolized purity and wisdom. Their horns became a symbol of prosperity and could serve as an indicator.
И мудрость. Их рога стали символом благосостояния и могли служить как индикатор
Of food poisoning among the aristocracy. But how can one find a unicorn horn in a world where these creatures do not exist? This question was answered by using the horns of other animals, such as rhinoceroses or walruses. However, the most popular were the tusks of narwhals, animals from the Arctic whose twisted tusks were mistaken for unicorn horns for centuries. Travelers and hunters secretly obtained these horns and sold them to Europeans as the horns of mythical creatures. Thus, merchants and great rulers like Lorenzo Medici and Queen Elizabeth the Bean paid huge sums for these tusks, considering them symbols of power and protection. Even the great inquisitor Tomás de Torquemada never traveled without a piece of such a horn, believing it could save his life from heretics. With the development of science and the progress of research methods, belief in the miraculous properties of unicorn horns faded, and now they remain as exhibits in museums, a reminder of how legends and reality intertwined in human history. Artifacts that are not displayed? You might be surprised, but not all archaeological finds make it to museum showcases. Some disappear even before official documentation. There are no press releases about them. They are not shown on television, and they don't even make it into scientific catalogs. They are either lost or hidden, sometimes by orders from above, sometimes to avoid causing problems. Sometimes it's because no one wants to explain what these things actually are. During an expedition in the 1970s, mentioned by chance by a former assistant at the Cairo Museum, a copper disc was found. On its surface, there were symbols that could not be matched to any known script. The object was taken to storage, and a month later it was lost. Later, photographs were found. In the photos, there is the disc and something resembling a star map, only it's not ours. There is even evidence that in the burials from the 5th dynasty period, objects made of strange alloys that cannot be analyzed were found. One of the archaeologists who kept a copy of the report claimed, "It's not bronze, not gold, not silver, it's something else. Where they are now, no one knows." Some will say it's a myth. But then why is access to the Cairo Museum's storage closed to most researchers? Why can't even Egyptian scientists get in there without special permission? Could these items explain a lot? Or would they cast too much doubt? Where does the saucer most often appear? An amazing fact. 4 out of 10 UFO reports come from the United States. Why there? And not, say, from Chad or Mongolia. The first reason is the sky is under a net. America has put radars on almost every mile. The military have their own. Airports have theirs. And meteorologists are in a league of their own. The denser the grid of sensors, the more fish get caught in the net. The second habit is to film everything. Americans seeing a bright orb don't call neighbors. They grab their phones, record it, post on TikTok, and use Tuxer UFO. While other countries debate the object's existence, the video is already trending. The third reason is the secret testing deserts. At night over Nevada and Utah, they test things that will be shown to the world in 10 years. Black triangular stealth aircraft, silent predator drones, reusable gliders. From the ground, people only see a dark silhouette illuminated by the moon, and their imagination fills in the rest, picturing a smooth disc. Click, and a video labeled alien craft is already flying through the feed. The fourth reason is the cultural background. Since childhood, there have been comics, the secret Area 51 test site, and the TV series The X-Files. People already have a name ready for any strange dot in the sky. In Nicaragua, a light pillar would be called Evil Spirit. In Japan, Foxfire. And in California, immediately, UFO. Simply put, more cameras and brighter pop culture mean more flying saucer sightings. So it turns out that aliens love the US not because there's convenient parking, but because they're seen more often there and documented more frequently. Traces of fire under megaliths. Under many ancient megalithic structures, archaeologists find charred layers. But these are not remnants of campfires. The temperature was too high for ordinary people to have created it. In some places, the stones are melted, as if they were exposed to plasma or a powerful energy source. In Pumapunku, in Tiwanaku, in Bolivia, there are marks on the basalt slabs as if they were cut with a red-hot tool. In Egypt, melted edges of blocks are recorded where there should be neither fire nor volcanism. Scientists explain this as random natural processes, but the temperature clearly exceeded any known level. Too many coincidences. It's as if in ancient times energy comparable to modern plasma cutting or even more powerful was used. Then the megaliths stop being tombs or ritual structures. They become traces of work with technologies that people simply didn't have. A medieval helmet on Mars. On August 5th, the Perseverance rover photographed a strange rock. In the photo, it looked like an old helmet, half buried in the sand. The top is pointed, the sidelines smoothly converge, and the surface is covered with many small spheres. Scientists named the find horned fly. They immediately noted that they had never seen such a texture on Mars before. These tiny balls, spherules, are mineral formations that appear through weathering, deposition, or under the influence of water. But on horned fly, there are so many of them that the entire surface looks as if it's covered with pearls. This can't be explained by ordinary erosion. It's possible that for millions of years, groundwater saturated with mineral salts passed through the rocks, but each drop left a trace. Or on the contrary, a stream of hot gases etched the surface, leaving scorched bubbles. The rover's instruments have already detected similar structures, but never in such quantity. On Earth, such formations are typical for areas with active hydrothermal activity, places where underground water meets heat. If this analogy is correct, it means that not only was there moisture in the crater and lake, but also circulation similar to what supports life near underwater volcanoes. Currently, Perseverance is on the northern edge of Sankt, ascending sedimentary layers like an archaeologist climbing the levels of an ancient city. With each meter climbed, this becomes increasingly clear. This helmet is not a random shape, but another reminder that the planet was not always a dead desert. Fake Giant Spring, 2025. The video is blowing up online. Over Arizona, a UFO the length of a skyscraper seems to be floating. There are tons of clickbait headlines online, 1,000 feet filmed by a drone. The video is getting millions of views. OSINT detectives get involved quickly. The first inconsistency. The object's shadow doesn't match the position of the sun. The second one, the metadata shows the footage was created with the same software plugin used by 3D artists. After another hour of work, the author himself admits it was a render for his portfolio. He didn't think everyone would believe it, but the video's virality had already captivated people. The media published it, bloggers discussed it, and experts gave their comments. The result is simple. One successful fake in an evening makes more contacts than all real radars do in a month. The lesson is simple. In the age of clicks, 3 seconds of graphics are enough for millions to decide. Aliens have arrived. Verification takes longer than lies spread. That means the next giant UFOs are already on their way. They don't even need to take off. The social media recommendation algorithm will lift them up. Egyptian artifacts in Antarctica. This story sounds like science fiction, but some sources, including reports from military expeditions during World War II, point to strange discoveries in the Queen Maud Land area of Antarctica. Among them are fragments of columns, supposedly covered with hieroglyphs, and remains of stone structures resembling Egyptian capitals. Officially, none of this has been recognized, and all the objects have either disappeared or have been declared natural formations. But the question remains, where did this evidence come from? One theory suggests that in ancient times, Antarctica was not covered with ice. The Piri Reis map, left in the 16th century, shows the outlines of the continent's coastline beneath the ice, with an accuracy that modern cartographers achieved only with the help of satellites. How did a cartographer from the 1500s know this? And if he didn't know, then who did he copy it from? Some alternative researchers believe that civilizations could have moved between continents long before our current ideas about migration. If Egypt really was part of a network spanning the Earth, then perhaps its traces can truly be found in the most unexpected places, where no one is looking. A leaked private report mentioned a fragment of an artifact discovered in an icy cave. The metal is an unknown alloy. The engraving remains undeciphered, but the symbols resemble Egyptian ones. But the artifact disappeared, and all members of the expedition signed a non-disclosure agreement. Missile versus mirror. The video that was shown in the U.S. Congress lasts only a few seconds. In it, a Hellfire missile, the standard weapon of drones, flies toward a bright metallic object over the sea off the coast of Yemen. The moment of explosion, a flash, and nothing. The strike seems to bounce off a mirror. No fire, no signs of destruction, just a brief shake of the frame and the surprised voice of the operator. This isn't footage from a science fiction movie, but official video released by the Committee for Oversight of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. For the military, anything that isn't identified must be explained. But here, there's no explanation. The object doesn't look like a drone, doesn't behave like a missile, and doesn't leave a plasma trail. It reflects energy as if it has its own magnetic field. Online, it's already being called the Yemeni mirror, a body capable of absorbing an impact. In Congress, they don't hide the fact. This isn't a U.S. test weapon or a confirmed enemy object. It's a rare moment when an official organization shows the world something it can't explain itself. What do you think? What could it be? Is it a new American weapon? Or a unique military object capable of deflecting enemy missiles the way a mirror reflects light? An ancient toy for adults. An artifact that's over 2,000 years old was found in the United Kingdom back in 1992. Initially, archaeologists assumed that this wooden object was used as a sewing tool. However, further studies suggested that it could have been an ancient sexual device. Most scientists agree that the wooden object found is shaped like a phallus. The uniqueness of this artifact is that it has not changed its shape or method of use even after thousands of years. And the most interesting thing is that its shape will not change in the future either, for obvious reasons. However, there are several theories regarding the use of this artifact as a sex toy. Based on Roman depictions, it is known that they had dildos. However, they rarely survived since they were most often made from organic materials. Some archaeologists also suggest that slave owners could have used such an item to inflict pain and demonstrate power over slaves. Others believe that it could have been a good luck amulet, since in ancient times, amulets of a similar shape were very common. And the last option is that it could have been used as a mortar for grinding or mixing spices and other materials used for culinary or medicinal purposes. Mars was sold at an auction. At a Sotheby's auction in London, a small rock weighing 24.5 kg was brought into the hall. But this is not just a rock, it's a fragment of Mars, listed in the catalog as NWA 16,788. It's the largest of all known Martian meteorites found on Earth. It was sold for $5.3 million, and as usual, the buyer's name was not disclosed. The story of this discovery began in 2023 in the Sahara Desert, in the territory of Niger. Local prospectors noticed a reddish-brown boulder among the sand, covered with a fusion crust. This is how the surface forms when entering the atmosphere, the moment when a space rock burns and melts on the outside, but remains cold on the inside. This shade is Martian, and the chemistry of its surface completely matches that of Mars. Watch the video on the channel. When the meteorite was cut open, it contained olivine crystals, a porphyritic inclusion, and tiny gas bubbles identical to those recorded in the atmosphere of Mars. It is hundreds of millions of years old. Once this piece was ejected from the planet's surface as a result of an asteroid impact and wandered through space until it fell to Earth. Now it belongs to a private collector. It might be put on display in a museum, or it might be locked away in a safe. It's hard to believe, but it's a fact. Someone now has a fragment of another planet sitting on their shelf. It's direct evidence that Mars had already been sending us its messages long before we learned to send ours there. Each such meteorite is not just a rock, it's a courier that traveled millions of kilometers to remind us that the connection between Earth and Mars began not with rockets, but with the impacts of celestial bodies. The Sabu disk. And this is one of the most mysterious artifacts of ancient Egypt. It was found in the tomb of Sabu, a descendant of Pharaoh Agib. It is at least 5,000 years old, but its true purpose remains a mystery. At first glance, it's a stone disc with 3 curved petals, but the details make you think. The thickness in some places is only 1.5 millimeters, which indicates incredible precision in its manufacture. Considering the level of technology at that time, many wonder how this was possible. Scientists hypothesize that the disc could have been part of a ritual or a decorative element. But there are other theories that go beyond the ordinary. Some researchers believe that the Sabu disk could have been a copy of a device left by visitors from the sky, a highly advanced civilization that visited Earth in ancient times. The structure and shape of the artifact resemble modern aerodynamic devices, or even elements of complex mechanisms. The Egyptians might have considered this object sacred and tried to reproduce something they saw but did not understand. Some think the Sabu disk could reveal how ancient civilizations interacted with extraterrestrial intelligence. For now, these are just speculations, but the mystical aura surrounding this artifact continues to excite minds and invites us to delve into the mysteries of the past. Alien Archives of the Vatican. Ufologist Steve Bassett claims that the Catholic Church is hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life in its archives and urges the Pope to reveal this information. In his opinion, the Church has long known about contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations, and the Vatican is deliberately hiding this. Bassett provides several pieces of evidence. First, he noticed strange images in medieval paintings, which he believes indicate the influence of UFOs, such as rabbits fighting knights or trumpeters using their bodies in unusual ways. In his opinion, these suggest extraterrestrial intervention. Secondly, in 2011, Vatican astronomer Guy Consolmagno jokingly said that the Church is ready to baptize any aliens that might be found. Bassett took this as a hint at the existence of a secret Vatican program preparing for contact with extraterrestrial beings. The third piece of evidence the ufologist cites is a statement by former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush, who said that in 1933, Italy discovered a UFO, and Pope Pius XII handed it over to the United States. Bassett urges the public to demand that the Vatican show these archives to the world. A cubic UFO scared the airplane pilot. In February 2020, an airplane on a routine flight in Colombia encountered an unusual airborne object. While at an altitude of over 9 kilometers, the captain took out his mobile phone to record a metallic object moving in a straight line. Something resembling a cube looks nothing like a balloon or other objects capable of being at such an altitude. The distance from the plane to the object has not been determined, so its estimated diameter is between 3 and 5 meters. Scientists suggest that extraterrestrial civilizations are afraid of direct confrontation with humanity and are not ready for direct contact. The object caught on camera may be similar to a scout that ended up on Earth to observe us from a distance. Perhaps the aliens are studying us and slowly preparing to visit our planet. Is that really the case? Time will tell, however. The experts who evaluated the video have not reached a consensus. The object has no wings and leaves no trail behind, which means it is not a man-made device. Skeptics suggest that the metallic cube is just a balloon that expanded at an altitude of over 9 kilometers. But physicists are convinced that the low temperature would not have allowed it to rise that high. Pyramidal ingots, North Bosnia, Sava River. Underwater archaeologists are retrieving not jewelry or coins from the bottom, but hundreds of iron bipyramidal ingots, extremely rare blanks from which, 2,000 years ago, knives, arrowheads, and parts of everyday items were forged. These are double pyramids in shape and are rarely found in large artifact groups. Previously, only single specimens were in museums in France, Germany, Slovenia, and Sarajevo. But here, there's a whole stockpile. Dating shows these are from the 1st to 2nd centuries BC. At this time, local exchange networks were reorganized under Rome's pressure, and iron became the main currency for craftsmen. The archaeologist's theory is simple. This is a sunken cargo. The river surged and the barge could have capsized. A wagon could also have gone into the water at the crossing. The current carried away the lighter goods, while the heavy bipyramidal ingots settled in piles on the bottom. The site was measured using reference points. A 3D photogrammetry model was created. Each ingot was immediately placed in distilled water to slow down corrosion. Next comes the chemistry. The analysis will show the ore used to smelt the iron and its transport routes. If the tracing matches, the Sava will emerge as a major transport corridor even before the arrival of Rome. And the Bosanskaya Pass is visible as a hub where iron was transformed into power into weapons, tools, and infrastructure. This is a rare case when a hoard tells not about luxury, but about production. These are not finished products, but blanks and logistics. It's a useful perspective on the economy of that time. Finds like these make it clear what exactly was traded and how it was transported. Islands that don't exist. The history of cartography is full of mysteries. Old sea charts from the 17th and 18th centuries show islands that don't exist today. Hundreds of sailors swore they saw land, went ashore, and even described the plants and animals. But after a few decades, these islands disappeared. Modern satellites confirm in the marked locations there is only empty ocean. The most famous example is Sandy Island in the Coral Sea. It was shown on maps for almost 200 years. In 2012, Australian researchers decided to double-check the spot, and they found nothing. Not a patch of land, not a trace of a reef, just a depth of 1.5 kilometers. But then how can we explain the hundreds of captains' records? Mass hallucination or a mistake by everyone at once? There are dozens of such cases. Brabant, Frederick, Emerald Islands, which existed for centuries and suddenly disappeared. Scientists attribute everything to measurement errors, but sailors left detailed reports with drawings and descriptions of the flora and fauna. Either all global navigation was mistaken for centuries, or we are dealing with a phenomenon for which we simply have no explanation. There are theories that these were not islands, but objects that could rise from the water and then go back into the depths. Perhaps volcanic formations, perhaps something else. Some ufologists believe that these could have been bases or ships of giants that disguised themselves as land. Too much evidence, fall 2024. The Pentagon releases a new report on unidentified phenomena. The table lists 757 incidents in just 1 year. More than half were recorded by military pilots. Strange spheres on radar, dark cubes inside transparent shells, objects moving against the wind and suddenly shooting upward. Some cases are explained in the usual way, satellite debris, drones, optics, but about a third fall into the column with no data for identification. That means both the speed and trajectories can't be fully understood, since the instruments act as if they're not observing a physical object. The Ministry of Defense is honest. There are no signs of extraterrestrials, but that's exactly the same wording that's been used for 70 years. The problem remains. The Navy and Air Force see something regularly. Cameras and thermal imagers, it's all recorded, but there's no explanation. Pilots say, at first you think it's a glitch. Then you see a spot on the radar making a 90-degree turn at the speed of a passenger jet. Such reports used to be locked away in safes. Now they're published in open reports. They just change the names. And it results in some strange arithmetic. The more precise the sensors become, the more often they catch things we don't have a name for. It seems the sky is silent only when we're not looking too closely. Again, it's the same recipe. Fear, technology, myth. We see it both under the pyramid and on the radar.
Пентагона.
Unknown creatures. Sometimes archaeologists find images they can't explain. They're too strange even for mythology. In one of the temples in the Dendera area, figures were noticed on the remains of the reliefs that stand out from the usual pantheon. They have long arms, large eyes, and heads shaped like water drops. They stand in a circle with star symbols above. In the center, someone stands with raised hands. The inscriptions are intentionally erased. This is not an isolated case. In other temples of Egypt, in Edfu, Abydos, figures that do not resemble humans, animals, or gods are also found on the walls of underground tombs. Sometimes they are depicted standing on platforms, surrounded by fire. Sometimes they are holding a sphere with rays that look like sunlight, but are clearly technical. One of the most mysterious reliefs, the so-called Dendera lamp, actually looks like something resembling a glass container with a cable from which a snake emerges. Only space is drier. If there is anywhere on Earth where you can feel the breath of another planet, it's Atacama. A strip of land squeezed between the Andes and the coastal Cordillera hasn't seen rain for 400 years. The air here is so dry that metal rusts more slowly than a person ages, but it is this absolute lifelessness that has made the desert the main laboratory for space. In San Pedro de Atacama, the air smells of sulfur and salt. During the day, the heat scorches the sand up to 104 degrees, and at night, the temperature drops below zero. Silence. where even footsteps sound like gunshots. Everything here is made for looking up. At an altitude of over 4,000 meters, where the thin air rings like glass, giant antennas are lined up in a row. ALMA, Magellan, the Very Large Telescope. They capture light that has traveled billions of years to reach us and break it into fine bands, like a researcher piecing together the universe's past bit by bit. When you look at these giant antennas, you feel that they are not like machines, but like living beings listening to the universe. Their aluminum ears catch the breath of stars, the cold rustle of intergalactic dust, and the echoes of distant bursts. In Atacama, a person is literally between two worlds, stone and space. Sometimes at night, local guides turn off the headlights, and the sky turns into a black dome, dotted with millions of needles of light. People stand in silence and watch as the Milky Way rises over the mountains. At this moment, it becomes clear, if there is a place on Earth where you can hear the universe, it is here, in the place where only bones are dried. They were looking at the sky long before us. If you think the UFO story started with flying saucers in the 40s, you've missed a couple of millennia. Sumerian priests in the 2nd millennium BC recorded in cuneiform black meteors changing shape. For them, these were divine signs, but the essence is familiar. Something appears in the sky, and there are no words for it. Nuremberg, April 14th, 1561. At dawn, the residents witness an aerial battle. Hundreds of spheres, crosses, and black darts falling onto the city walls. The artist Hans Glaser carves the scene onto a sheet. Only God knows the true meaning. We would call this a mass UFO sighting, but back then it was seen as an omen. Mount Rainier, June 24th, 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold reports 9 shiny objects skipping like saucers over water. The newspapers confuse the metaphor and introduce the term flying saucer. This is how the modern UFO era begins. It took 3,500 years to go from tablets to newspapers, but the questions remain the same. What is flying above our heads, and why does every generation see its own sign in it? The Eye of Horus, in the form of a diagram. Sometimes the mystery isn't hidden underground, it's on the surface, right in front of our eyes. If you look at the Giza complex from above and then overlay the image of the Eye of Horus, the ancient Egyptian symbol of omniscience and supreme knowledge, the lines start to match up. The layout of the pyramids, Sphinx, Queen's Chamber, shafts, and Grand Gallery, all strangely form a shape resembling this sacred symbol. The eye centers align with the Great Void's location. The tier matches the descending corridor, and the strokes align with the shafts. Is this truly a coincidence? The Eye of Horus in Egyptian tradition is not just a symbol, it's a diagram of the universe. Its parts are responsible for vision, hearing, taste, speech, touch, and thought. And it is these 6 parts that supposedly correspond with mathematical precision to the structure of the corridor inside the pyramid. Moreover, it was not modern esotericists who first spoke about this, but mathematicians and architects who seriously analyzed the internal structure. If we assume that the pyramid was not a tomb, but a repository of knowledge, it is possible that it is encoded as a giant 3-dimensional model. Martian coral. On July 24, 2025, the Curiosity rover sent a photo that initially left scientists stunned. On the rock, there was a shape all too familiar to us from Earth. It looked like coral, a real fossilized coral, evidence that an ocean full of life might once have splashed on Mars. NASA was quick to explain, no biology, just minerals that took on a strange shape due to water and wind erosion. A rock, not an organism. Our brain fills in familiar images where there are none. The official version sounds logical, too logical. But how many times have we heard the same thing? A rock just happens to look like a statue. A shadow just happens to look like a tower. A shape just happens to resemble the outline of a living creature. At what point does the number of these coincidences become proof? Maybe it really is just nature at play, or maybe we're just not ready to hear the main thing. Mars was alive, and that's exactly why we're so drawn to it, because deep down, we're coming home. Gray under the wheel. The Curiosity rover is rolling along the bottom of an old riverbed in the Geddes Vallis Canyon. The rocks are just rocks, nothing special. One of the boulders cracks under the wheel of the nearly 1-ton machine, and inside a pure yellow glow flashes. It's not dust, not salt, but elemental sulfur and crystals. Nothing like this has ever been found on Mars before. Sulfur was known only as sulfates, which form upon contact with water, while pure sulfur appears only under rare, almost home-like conditions. It's as if everything unnecessary was squeezed from the rock. For science, this is a double gift. First, sulfur is vital to amino acid chains. Without it, there would be no protein on Earth. Secondly, the very fact of its existence breaks previous models of Martian geology. Now, the area where such rocks are found becomes a priority point. We need to drill, observe, and build new climate scenarios. The first accurate image of the moon. The early 17th century became an era of great discoveries in astronomy thanks to the invention of the telescope. The moon, previously thought to be a smooth celestial body, appeared to scientists in a completely new light. In 1609, Galileo Galilei used a telescope to study the moon for the first time, discovering numerous craters.
И долин на ее поверхности.
The observations became a true revolution in the perception of celestial bodies. Galileo recorded his discoveries in a series of detailed drawings that, for the first time, depicted the real topography of the moon. These images were included in his work, Starry Messenger, published in 1610. Thanks to these sketches, it became clear that the surface of the moon is much more complex than ancient philosophers had assumed and consists of irregularities resembling mountains on Earth. Interestingly, Galileo was not the first to point a telescope at the moon. Thomas Harriot, an English astronomer, began his observations of the moon back in 1609, but his drawings were less detailed and not as widely known. It was Galileo who had a key influence on the development of astronomy. The discovery of the moon as an uneven and dynamic object inspired many generations of researchers. Some ufologists believe that Galileo's drawings might have been the first images of anomalies on the surface of the moon. This interest continues today, giving rise to many theories about the possible extraterrestrial origin of some lunar features. The asteroid impact and contact with the gods. The asteroid that is believed to have wiped out the dinosaurs about 66 million years ago left a significant mark on the Yucatan Peninsula. This impact created the Chicxulub crater, which remains an important geological site to this day. Although this cataclysm occurred long before the rise of the Maya civilization, its long-term geological and ecological consequences may have influenced the formation of the region where this culture later developed. Archaeological findings, such as cities and structures destroyed and buried under layers of sediment, may indirectly support the theory of cataclysms that occurred in the Yucatan. Nevertheless, there is no direct evidence that the Maya knew about the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs or had any information about them. The idea that the Maya could have had contact with dinosaurs is scientifically unfounded. Dinosaurs became extinct long before the appearance of the first humans, let alone the Maya civilization. However, in their mythology and art, you can find depictions of creatures that can be interpreted as legendary or mythical animals, but this is not evidence of any real contact with dinosaurs. Researchers sometimes find dinosaur fossils in Mesoamerica, but these discoveries date back to times that predate human history. Such findings may be of interest to geologists or paleontologists, but they do not support the theory of contact between the Maya and dinosaurs. Knowledge of ancient cataclysms may have been integrated into their mythology and beliefs related to natural phenomena and the actions of the gods. The Maya believed in the cyclical nature of time and recurring catastrophes, which could have reflected their understanding of the past and their anticipation of future events. Artifacts of Hongshan. The Hongshan civilization is one of the most mysterious cultures of ancient Egypt, which existed about 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. It left behind unusual jade artifacts, humanoids with teardrop-shaped heads and huge eyes. Some of the figurines resemble creatures riding water scooters or even flying machines. These images do not fit into the usual idea of ancient cultures and make you wonder who or what the craftsmen of Hongshan were trying to depict. The unique caves of Hongshan, discovered in 1999, are also attributed to this culture. These man-made caves are impressive in their size and complexity. Inside, you can see pools, bridges over rivers, stairs, and passages. The area of the largest cave is 12,600 square meters. But the real mystery lies in the marks left on the walls. They resemble modern tunnel boring machines, although technology of that level is believed not to have existed thousands of years ago. In addition, it remains unclear where the massive amounts of excavated rock disappeared to. Scientists still haven't found any trace of its use. Some researchers consider jade artifacts evidence of contact with a more advanced civilization, possibly of extraterrestrial origin. The image of a car on an ancient temple. The Sigara Madu Temple, also known as Pura Dalam Jagaraga, is located in the north of Bali, 11 kilometers east of the city of Singaraja. The temple is located in the village of Jagaraga, which is known for the tragic event of 1849, when during the Dutch colonization, a ritual suicide of local residents took place here. Originally, the temple was built in the 12th century during the reign of King Raj Sri Aji Jagaraga, but it was later destroyed during the Dutch invasion. The restoration of the temple began in 1865, and its current appearance has mostly remained unchanged since then. The temple complex includes two temples, Pura Dalam, dedicated to Shiva, and Pura Prajapati, dedicated to Durga, which reflects their mythological roles as spouses in Hinduism. The temple walls are decorated with carvings depicting leaves, flowers, nagas, serpent-like creatures, and human figures. Pura Dalam Sigara Madu is associated with rituals of death and destruction as it is dedicated to Shiva. In the central courtyard, there are the carved Paduraksa gates decorated with the head of the mythical creature Boma, as well as pavilions for preparing offerings and conducting rituals. This temple is unique in that its walls feature scenes from the Western world, such as a plane falling into the sea, a ship attacked by a sea monster, and an old car. These images appeared because Singaraja was the main seaport of Bali in the 19th and 20th centuries, through which contact with European civilization took place. The Iraqi Ghost. Not long ago, a video published by the famous American mythologist and director Jeremy Corbell went viral on the internet. The so-called Iraqi ghost, which has the shape of a jellyfish, sparked heated discussions online and attracted the attention of both scientists and avid skeptics. In the published footage, you can see an object in the shape of a sphere with dangling tentacles smoothly flying over an American military base located in Iraq without changing its speed. The source claims that after this, the ghost descended into a body of water and stayed there for 17 minutes, after which it suddenly took off at a 45-degree angle from the ground and, gaining incredible speed, disappeared from sight. Unfortunately, the footage only shows the flyover above the base, but the soldiers did not notice the object, which indicates its silent movement. Another interesting feature is the change in color of the UFO, which becomes gray, then white, and then black. All this indicates a change in the temperature of the object, which operates perfectly both in water and on land. Scientists suggest that UFOs are the result of the activities of an underwater terrestrial civilization, about which humanity still knows nothing. Ufologists are convinced that this video confirms the existence of aliens who use objects in an extraterrestrial world. Critics are convinced that the Iraqi ghost is just balloons flying close together. It is impossible to confirm or refute their statement, since the recording was not made while the object was submerging into the water. It is noteworthy that this is not the first UFO to have a jellyfish shape. In 1977, the well-known Petrozavodsk phenomenon occurred when 100 people saw an unidentified object resembling a sea monster. A similar object was spotted in São Paulo in 2020, causing shock among the passionate Brazilians. It is also worth mentioning that the footage was recorded in 2018, but the U.S. government carefully concealed this information, fearing public disclosure. Indonesian Star Trek. In 1992, geologist Castillo made a discovery that still causes shock. In the Kapanga province of Indonesia, he explored the Devil's Cave in the mountains and discovered an unusual stone. Mysterious symbols were engraved on its surface resembling a star map. The markings on the stone are strikingly similar to the images on the plaques sent by NASA into space, with the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 probes in the 1970s. The stone depicts a man and a woman holding hands, as well as the sun, stars, and lines resembling roots. Geologists claim that the stone was worked on hundreds of thousands of years ago. This casts doubt on its earthly origin, since at that time people supposedly could not have possessed such knowledge. Conspiracy theorists suggest that aliens received the message from the Pioneer probe, but made a miscalculation and ended up on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. Perhaps they got stuck here and left their mark in the form of this stone. Another theory says that the stone could have been created by a highly developed civilization that existed in Indonesia long before our era. The map depicts a star system with 1 star and 7 planets, almost an exact replica of the solar system. Modern scientists recognize 8 planets, but not long ago Neptune was considered an asteroid. Whoever the authors of the mysterious stone were, their knowledge of the stars remains a mystery, astonishing modern science. The UFO expert found a portal. Expert Carl Nally from the organization UFO and Paranormal Research Ireland claims that in the central part of Ireland, between Athlone and Slane, there may be a portal through which UFOs enter the Earth. According to him, these sightings have increased in recent months and their purpose may be related to studying the military strength of humans. This statement came amid reports of unidentified objects spotted near military bases and nuclear facilities. According to Nally, the U.S. authorities have not been able to determine the origin of these objects, which only strengthens the assumption of their extraterrestrial origin. The expert paid special attention to Ireland, where numerous UFO sightings have been recorded. Nally believes that places like the region between Athlone and Slane could be portals through which alien ships travel between space and Earth. He also noted that such phenomena occur simultaneously all over the world, which indicates a global increase in activity. Write in the comments whether we should trust such experts and whether you believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. Life in icy oceans. When searching for life, we've always looked at Mars. But perhaps the most promising places are even farther away, beneath layers of ice. Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede. These moons look like silent white spheres, but beneath their surface lie oceans that are tens of kilometers deep. Everything is there. Water, heat from internal sources, and the chemical elements necessary for life. On Enceladus, the Cassini spacecraft detected geysers shooting into space. Organic molecules have been found in them. On Europa, cracks have been observed from which clouds of vapor periodically erupt. If there are oceans beneath the ice, it's an ideal place for life to develop. The beings might be like Earth's squids or jellyfish, or entirely different, with forms and organic matter unlike anything familiar. Scientists speak cautiously. There is a high chance of habitability, but we understand that if there really is life there, it won't just be another discovery. It will be an encounter with beings that have lived for millions of years in isolation, in another ocean, under a different sky, and then the solar system will no longer seem like ours. It will become shared. The Baltic Sea anomaly. 2011 Swedish divers scan the bottom and see a perfect circle, 60 meters in diameter. A straight groove stretches from it, as if something had been breaking along the seafloor for a long time and landed. The photo spreads across the media. An underwater flying saucer, the Millennium Falcon. Tourists are booking spots on boats. UFO enthusiasts are already writing books. 2025. A team of geologists takes an underwater LiDAR scan and conducts their own thorough research. The structure is strange, but inside, it's granite. On the cross-sections, there are cavities in the glacial rock. It's a boulder rolled by ice for 1,000 years until it got stuck in silt, leaving an alien-looking trail. The conclusion is the same as before. Sometimes a perfect saucer is just a stone polished by a glacier, but it was this very stone that made people dive to the bottom, bring new equipment, and clearly demonstrate how science debunks myths and fakes. The stone remained a stone, and the Baltic Sea got its first underwater geopark. The clearest one. On September 4th, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica, photographer Sergio Lueza was taking aerial photographs of Lake Coati for the National Geographic Institute. Using a special cartographic camera that took a photo every 13 seconds he was doing his job, unaware that one of the shots would become unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photos and noticed a mysterious round metallic object in the right part of one of the pictures. It is noteworthy that the object, resembling a flying saucer, was not found in either the previous or the subsequent frames. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to conceal the discovery, forbidding Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. The metallic flying object, more than 18 meters in diameter, was kept under strict secrecy, but in 1979 the photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photograph as official confirmation of the existence of UFOs. Despite years of study and debates among researchers in this field, no one has been able to say what this object is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photograph is some kind of debris or a spot that got onto the film during the photo processing. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photograph in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the photo, making it clearer and more detailed. Thanks to this, skeptics saw the saucer-shaped object in higher resolution. The updated photo made it possible to dismiss a number of ordinary assumptions and theories, since it was not a smudge or a chip on the camera lens. So what was it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscriber. Scientists believe that the exoplanet LHS 1142, LHS 1140b, may have an atmosphere suitable for breathing and an ocean of liquid water. This planet was discovered back in 2014, but new research has revealed many secrets. Because of its unusual appearance, LHS 1140b is called the Eye Planet. It is located 48 light-years from Earth in the constellation Cetus and weighs 7 times more than our planet. Studies using a NASA telescope have confirmed the presence of water and a nitrogen-rich atmosphere similar to Earth's. However, the local sun is a tiny star, only 1/5 the size of our sun. It emits energy mainly in the red and infrared parts of the spectrum, so the planet is likely shrouded in twilight. If there is vegetation there, it is most likely black in color to absorb as much light as possible. Recent studies have shown that the planet could be either a mini Neptune made of gas or a mega-Earth covered with water. Scientists lean toward the idea that this planet is a water world with a rocky core. It is also believed to have a dense atmosphere and a stable climate. Astronomer Ryan McDonald from the University of Michigan noted that this is the first time we've seen a hint of an atmosphere on a rocky, potentially habitable planet. We may have found evidence of air there. The four-eyed figurine. This mysterious figurine, known as the four-eyed, was found in what is now Serbia. The artifact is estimated to be over 7,000 years old, making it one of the oldest finds associated with the pre-literate culture of the Balkans. The figurine depicts a humanoid with 4 eyes, or possibly with features resembling a mask. There is a hypothesis that these 4 eyes are actually part of a mask or headdress, and the figurine itself may have depicted not a real being, but a mythical or divine creature revered in that society at the time. There is even a bold suggestion that it could be something resembling a spacesuit, hinting at contact with something extraterrestrial. Although, of course, this remains in the realm of fantasy. Little is known about the purpose of the figurine. It may have been used in rituals or served as a symbol of a protector or guardian. This artifact raises more questions than answers and continues to spark debates among archaeologists and mystery enthusiasts. The four-eyed one is one of those rare artifacts that not only reveal fragments of the past to us, but also ignite our imagination. The Great Comet of 1820.
года.
The 19th century became a special time for those who loved to gaze at the stars. During this period, from 1811 to 1882, people observed as many as 8 great comets, which amazed both scientists and ordinary people alike. These celestial events inspired artists, composers, and even amateur astronomers. Among all these comets, Donati's comet of 1858 holds a special place. It was the first comet to be photographed. But an even more astonishing event was the appearance of the Great Comet of 1861. The Great Comet of 1861 came so close to Earth that our planet literally passed through its tail. For 2 days, this tail blocked the sunlight, creating an unusual twilight even during the daytime. The comet was discovered by an Australian farmer, John Tebbutt. A young amateur astronomer saw it in Eridanus on May 13, 1861. In 1865, it was photographed, but the most remarkable event was the Great Comet of 1861 observed in St. Petersburg. He mistook it for a star, but later realized that it was a comet. After making sure of his discovery, Tebbutt sent a letter to the local observatory and even published an article in the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper. The news about the discovery of the comet quickly spread around the world. In June 1861, the comet was already being observed in the northern hemisphere. An amazing description of its brightness and size was published in English newspapers. The comet's tail covered a huge part of the sky and was visible even against the daylight. The real sensation was that the Earth crossed the comet's tail, which caused rare atmospheric phenomena. The sky took on yellow and reddish hues, and the sunlight became unusually weak. The magnificence of the comet impressed contemporaries, and for John Tebbutt, its discovery marked the beginning of a brilliant career. Later, he built his own observatory and made many valuable observations. His contribution to astronomy is immortalized on the Australian $100 bill, and the Great Comet of 1861 itself remains to this day one of the brightest phenomena in the history of space observation. Venus, the planet that breathes. If Mars is called our potential second home, then Venus is called hell. Everything there is against life. Heat close to 500 degrees Celsius, pressure like at a depth of a kilometer in the ocean, and clouds of sulfuric acid. But in 2020, the world was shocked by the news. Phosphine was discovered in the atmosphere of Venus. On Earth, it appears in 2 cases, in the laboratory and as a byproduct of living organisms. Back in the 1970s, Soviet probes transmitted mysterious images. There were objects in them that looked like rocks which changed position. Scientists were quick to write it all off as equipment defects. But after the discovery of phosphine, many people remembered these photos. And now the question sounds different. What if there is life on Venus? Not the kind we're used to, but something else. The kind that has learned to survive in acidic clouds and use poison like air. If there is life where it shouldn't exist, then our Earth is not a unique miracle at all. We are not the exception. We are just one of the forms, accidentally surviving on our own planet. A sphere outside the ISS window. A couple of months ago, one of the astronauts took a picture of the Earth with his smartphone, and in the shot there was a brown sphere floating against the background of the clouds. At first glance, it's a classic case, a perfect sphere, a stone-like texture, no wings, no antennas. Online, there were once again suggestions that this is a probe satellite hiding from radars. But the ISS engineers see it differently. First, the sphere appears sharper than the planet behind it, suggesting it's near the lens. Second, there's just one photo. An actual orbiting object would blur into a streak in less than a second. The most likely and dullest scenario is that thermal insulation or a bit of condensation ice came loose from the module joints and drifted past the window. In bright light, charred foil can easily look like a rocky crust, and a water droplet is perfect in shape. NORAD was silent that day, not a single large object nearby. That means no large debris was detected nearby. So most likely, what we have here is an inch-sized fragment caught at just the right moment. Another reminder of how easily scale can deceive the eye when you're looking at Earth through the window of a space station. Dangers and mysterious deaths. People who talk about their encounters with UFOs face several dangers. One of the main threats is social condemnation. Witnesses are often ridiculed and not taken seriously, which can negatively affect their personal and professional lives. In addition, there are more serious risks, including psychological pressure, threats, and even physical danger, especially if their testimonies involve secret government programs or military facilities. There are several examples of mysterious deaths of UFO researchers. For example, James McDonald, a well-known scientist and UFO researcher, allegedly committed suicide in 1971 after a series of mysterious events and threats. Morris Jessup, the author of the book Case for the UFO, also died under suspicious circumstances in 1959, which raised suspicions of possible outside interference. There are programs to protect UFO witnesses and researchers. Some organizations provide legal support and security consultations. There are many theories about the connection between the deaths of UFO researchers and their work. Some suggest that governments or secret organizations eliminate people who possess dangerous knowledge or reveal confidential information. Others believe that these deaths may be the result of psychological pressure and stress associated with studying and disclosing such information. Nuku Hiva bas reliefs. On the island of Nuku Hiva, which is part of the Marquesas Islands in French Polynesia, archaeologists are amazed by mysterious statues. The bas reliefs and sculptures depict strange beings that resemble gray aliens. They have human bodies, but their heads look like reptiles, with huge round eyes and low-set mouths. Who created these statues, and why? It's unknown. The modern natives of the island know nothing about the origin of the sculptures, and believe that they depict the ancient god Onu, who, according to their beliefs, created the world. When Europeans discovered the island in the 16th century, it was inhabited by savage gatherers who became notorious for cannibalism. However, the link between current inhabitants and the creators of the mysterious statues is lost. Archaeologists believe these sculptures are at least 150,000 years old. Some believe that they depict priests in ritual masks, but such masks look too unusual to be just a part of earthly culture. Supporters of the conspiracy theory are convinced that a colony of aliens once lived on Nuku Hiva. In their opinion, the statues depict hybrids of humans and aliens, and the sculptures themselves are evidence of ancient experiments. A message to aliens. The golden record attached to the Voyager spacecraft is a unique message from humanity to another civilization. Launched in 1977, the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft are not only important tools for exploring the solar system, but also symbols of humanity's desire to make contact with intelligent life beyond Earth. The record contains greetings in 55 languages, including ancient music by great composers, sounds of nature, the noise of wind, the splash of waves, birds singing, and even the beating of a human heart. It also contains 100 images depicting everyday human life, animals, architecture, and scientific achievements. To help extraterrestrials decipher the contents, the cover of the disc is engraved with instructions and diagrams showing Earth's location relative to pulsars in our galaxy. This record is a kind of cosmic ambassador, addressed not only to potential extraterrestrial observers, but also to future generations of Earth. It serves as a reminder that humanity is a single entity, capable of coming together to represent its culture, history, and planet. The message from Voyager is humanity's first conscious step in attempting to establish contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. The mineral of fire. On the eastern edge of the Martian Valles Marineris, the probe detected a strange shimmer, as if the dust were covered with a delicate glaze. When spectral analysis confirmed the presence of iron hydroxysulfate, the scientists fell silent. This mineral could not have appeared by chance. 3 conditions are required for its formation: water, oxygen, and heat above 100 degrees Celsius. This means that when it appeared, Mars was still alive, breathing, and boiling. The discovery site is the Aram Chaos region, where the terrain looked as if it had been mixed by a giant drill. Layers of underground ice once lay here, and then something heated them up to the point of explosion. The ice melted, water burst to the surface, and a crater lake formed, which existed until it evaporated, leaving behind salts and this mysterious mineral. On Earth, it's almost never found. It's too humid. It breaks down too quickly. The Martian desert became the perfect oven where minerals were baked like ceramics. Perhaps the last bursts of volcanism or the movement of hot subsurface waters created conditions where water and fire met at the boundary of life. The temperature at which this mineral forms speaks for itself. Mars stayed hot much longer than previously thought. Not a dead world, but one still smoldering from within. Iron hydroxysulfate is not just a chemical rarity, but direct evidence that flows of heat and moisture persisted beneath the surface for a long time. And if there was once liquid water deep underground, then microscopic life could have survived there as well. Mars archives, ProMars, galaxy. There are many, too many. But there is one strange coincidence. Almost all ancient peoples mention the red star in legends as a place where gods lived or where they came from. The Sumerians associated it with the god of war, Indian epics with heavenly chariots, and the Egyptians even called it the place of wanderers. Modern researchers add fuel to the fire. Back in the 1970s, rumors reached Earth about secret photos from orbit, where the ruins of cities could supposedly be seen. Officially, these photos were never published, and those that are available today raise new questions. Mars looks like a huge library, its pages filled with billions of years of history, but we can only see the cover. The sphere above the runway. Harton Airport is small and local, with one runway, a couple of hangars, and a cornfield nearby. The first reports come in on the night of June 3rd. The controller sees a bright sphere the size of a car on the cameras, hovering at the end of the runway. The collision avoidance system issues an alert, but the radar shows nothing. After 5 minutes, the sphere suddenly shot upward. No traces, sensor issues, or communication interference. They dismissed it as spotlight glare. 2 days later, the same event occurs in daylight. This time, a technician checking navigation lights captures the sphere on his phone. The video is simple. Blue sky, a runway, and a white sphere hovering about 20 meters above the ground, as if it's being held by an invisible cable. Then with a jerk at almost a 90-degree angle, the object disappears behind the clouds in a split second. The third appearance happens at night before a thunderstorm. The sphere flashes with a cold white color. The duty pilot swears he saw a thin light beam come from the sphere toward the runway's end, as if scanning the surface. The thunderstorm hit the airfield just 10 minutes later. In the morning, engineers check the equipment. Nothing. Cameras are fine, electrical systems normal, and radar still detects nothing. The airport management calls in security. They call the military, but the report is brief. No violations were found. The object was not identified. And here's what's strange. The sphere always appears at one specific spot, where the concrete transitions into old asphalt left over from the military runway of the 1960s. Geologists who came at the request of journalists found a magnetic field anomaly under this joint, as if there was a large metal block about 10 meters deep. There are no conclusions. Planes continue to land and take off. Every day, the controllers make a note in the log. Visual contact with an unidentified luminous object. 3 times a week is too much to write off as a coincidence, and there isn't enough data to call it technology. Remote viewing. Project Stargate is a secret program launched by the CIA in the 1970s to study and apply the phenomenon of remote viewing, also known as distant perception. Remote viewing is the ability of a person to obtain information about distant or inaccessible objects, places, or events without using ordinary sensory means. Project Stargate was created to explore the possibility of using this ability for intelligence purposes, including research. Various methods were used in the project, such as hypnosis, meditation, and other techniques, to put participants into an altered state of consciousness where they could receive information. These methods were used to investigate UFOs and search for signs of extraterrestrial activity. One of the key participants in the project was Pat Price, a former police officer who had exceptional abilities in the field of remote viewing. Pat Price made several important discoveries, especially regarding objects near Mount Hayes in Alaska. He claimed that he saw an underground base there, operated by aliens, and described detailed structures and technologies that were supposedly located at this base. These claims sparked great interest and controversy among researchers. Some CIA documents contain references to such bases and confirmed that Price provided information that was partially corroborated by other intelligence sources. However, there was no direct and unequivocal evidence of the existence of an alien base, and many aspects of these claims remain controversial. Remote viewing is used for reconnaissance and UFO research, allowing information to be obtained about places that cannot be explored by traditional methods. For example, remote viewers can describe the internal structures of spacecraft or bases that are inaccessible to physical observation. The death of Pat Price in 1975 under mysterious circumstances adds an element of danger to the work of remote viewers. Price's death gave rise to numerous speculations and conspiracy theories, suggesting that he might have been eliminated because of his knowledge and abilities. The message of the extraterrestrials. Easter Island, lost in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, became famous for its giant moai stone statues and the mysterious Rongorongo inscribed tablets. These ancient tablets, covered with strange hieroglyphs, still remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries. That Rongorongo is the script of the Rapa Nui civilization, which flourished on the island until the 18th century. The story of their discovery begins in 1864 when the French missionary Eugène Hérault first took notice of the wooden tablets covered with unusual signs. The tablets were made from the wood of the Toramiro tree, which grew on the island and could be found in almost every home. However, soon most of these artifacts disappeared due to internal wars and destruction. About 25 tablets remain, and their study has revealed a unique writing style that resembles an inverted boustrophodon. This method of recording symbols had previously only been found among the Incas. The tablets depict figures of animals, plants, and anthropomorphic beings. Scientists suggest that these symbols might have been used to record rituals and myths. There is particular interest in the similarities between Rongorongo and other ancient scripts. Some of the symbols resemble the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt and India, as well as the symbols of the Harappan civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley. Parallels have even been drawn with the scripts of the Kuna Indians of Central America and drawings on the island of Sumatra, leading to theories about connections between ancient cultures across the ocean. Attempts to decipher Rongorongo continue to this day, but so far, these writings have not been fully understood. One theory is that they describe rituals involving sacrifices to the gods. Another hypothesis, more fantastical, suggests an extraterrestrial origin for these signs, hinting at contact with alien civilizations. Otherwise, how could people living on different continents in those distant times have similar writing systems, while today, despite having so many ways to connect through phones, satellites, and the internet, we still speak different languages? The mystery of Rongorongo remains unsolved, but its study continues to inspire scientists and enthusiasts all over the world. Cosmic alignment. We can forgive the ancients for being inaccurate. We can explain mistakes, but Egypt did not make mistakes. The Great Pyramid is aligned to the cardinal points with a deviation of less than 0.05 degrees. That's more precise than most modern buildings. To achieve such alignment, it's not enough to just know where north is. You have to account for the Earth's precession, its axial wobble, which shifts the starry sky over thousands of years. That means, to build the pyramid so precisely, the builders would have had to observe the stars for centuries, or have data that shouldn't have existed. But what's even stranger is how the three main pyramids of Giza are positioned. They replicate the shapes of the three stars in Orion's belt, not approximately, but with precise alignment to the era of 10,500 BC. It was at that time, according to astronomical models, that the constellation Orion occupied the same position above the horizon. The Egyptians called Orion Sa, the body of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Coincidence? There's another mystery connected to this alignment, the center pyramid. The distance from it to the center of the Earth between the northern and southern hemispheres, and between the eastern and western meridians, is minimal. This is the geographic axis of the planet. How did they determine it? The scientific explanation is observation, trial and error, and millennia of experience. The alternative is that someone already knew, and the pyramid is just a trace left by their instruments, or a landmark for those who were supposed to return. Trillions of alien sensors. Richard Banderich speaks quietly, like a man who knows his words are already being recorded. Former NASA and Lockheed Martin engineer. He spent decades designing propulsion systems, and now he claims the Earth is littered with invisible devices of extraterrestrial origin. He says they've been here a long time and we're now finding them. According to him, we're not talking about ship debris, but about a network of tiny sensors, trillions of microscopic structures scattered across the planet. Some of them, he claims, are able to change shape and camouflage themselves with their surroundings. His team supposedly observed one such fragment under a microscope. The metal was pulsing, as if it understood it was being watched. Banderich claims he saw these objects dissolve into dust as soon as someone tried to study them. But the analysis revealed something that shouldn't be there. The isotopic composition doesn't match anything known on Earth. After the publication, his access to the materials was revoked, the laboratory was transferred to a private entity, and the engineer himself was suspended. Now he speaks openly. These are not our technologies. They are too ancient, too intelligent. According to him, the network works like a sensory system. The surveillance system is not for attack, but for registering life, an invisible web of antennas enveloping the planet. You can be skeptical about the engineer's words, but with every discovery that suggests artificial interference in the natural order of things, the line between the incredible and the quite possible becomes thinner. Sometimes it feels like we are being studied with the same interest with which we observe other worlds. Flying chariots? Ancient Indian poems describe flying machines as if it's an assembly in modern technology. In the Ramayana, Prince Rama rises into the sky on the Pushpaka Vimana. The body shines, the windows glow, and the craft takes off vertically, like the sun, lifted by thought. In the Mahabharata, two Vimanas meet in battle, firing metal arrows that roar like thunder, and then depart, leaving a trail of fire behind. Later, in the treatise Samarangana Sutradhara, King Bukoja suddenly speaks in almost technical language. Inside the Vimana, there is a mercury chamber, and around it, rings of iron. When the mercury is heated, they generate a driving force. It is the force that carries the device through the air. Scientists debate how much of these texts is actual memory and how much is poetic metaphor. The details stand out. Mercury as the working fluid, vertical takeoff, and a separate shield to protect the passenger from heat. On the frescoes of Ellora and the walls of Angkor, you can see streamlined capsules with a cone of fire underneath. It's too similar to a jet exhaust to be a coincidence. Skeptics note the manuscripts are late and may have been forged by alchemists. For Indians, mercury symbolizes immortality. But then why do the temples depict not gods on clouds, but clearly mechanical machines? So far, no archaeologist has found any physical parts of a Vimana, but the legends are still alive. In India, people say celestial chariots will return when humans rediscover the language of metal and mercury, suggesting the technology might still exist somewhere. If you add water, we're used to thinking that life requires one simple ingredient, water, and then the temptation arises. What if we bring it to places where it doesn't exist? The moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury. 4 different stories, 4 different endings. There's already water on the moon, in the form of ice at the poles, hidden in the eternal darkness of craters. Add oceans, and we'd see a planet with powerful tides. But the moon is too small to hold on to an atmosphere. The water would quickly evaporate into space, leaving only a temporary sea. The moon won't become a second home. It will remain a dead desert, only temporarily shining. Mars looks more promising. There are glaciers there, and there was water in ancient times. If we fill it with oceans, the planet will come to life. The air will become denser, clouds will appear, and the climate will change. But Mars isn't protected by a magnetic field, and the solar wind will gradually strip away the atmosphere. Any second Earth we create will turn out to be temporary. In a few thousand years, the water will escape into space again. Venus is the opposite side of the story. If you add water where there is hellish heat and acidic clouds, it will boil instantly. You'll get an ocean of steam. The greenhouse effect will intensify, and the temperature will rise even higher. It's impossible to flood Venus with water. It will only destroy it. To bring this world to life, you first need to cool it down and destroy its dense atmosphere. The task is almost impossible. Mercury is an extreme case. The closest planet to the sun has a scorching surface and icy shadows in its craters. Water won't stay there. During the day, it will boil. At night, it will freeze and eventually escape into space. Mercury is too close to the sun to sustain life, and then it becomes clear, simply adding water is not the solution. Only Earth turned out to be that unique platform where water can stay and function. Other worlds are too unstable, too hostile, or too small. There, water is not a source of life, but a reminder of how delicate the balance on our planet is. New video about Roswell. Almost 80 years have passed since strange debris was found on a ranch in New Mexico. But the story of Roswell has come alive again. A 22-minute video suddenly appeared in the U.S. National Archives. No commentary, no annotations. The title is simple: The Roswell Incident. The footage shows a gray field, scattered metal fragments, and a crater-like impact hole. Everything was filmed on old film. Users compared the landscape to eyewitness descriptions from 1947, and the similarities turned out to be eerily accurate. Someone noticed a vague silhouette in the right corner that looked like a body. Experts were quick to temper the excitement. An archive is not proof. It's just a storage place. The video is probably related to Mogul program documents. Aerostats for tracking Soviet nuclear tests. The official version is that it was a weather balloon, the wreckage of which was mistaken for a flying saucer. But for UFO enthusiasts, the appearance of this video is an event. The National Archives is not an anonymous forum. Random fakes are not uploaded there. Why the video only appeared there now is a question no one is answering. And maybe that's the whole point of the Roswell story. Even if the mystery has long been explained, every new fragment brings back the feeling that somewhere under the dust of the past, something that doesn't belong to Earth still lies hidden. If all this is true, then the history of Earth is much more complicated than we think. After all, traces of UFOs lead both to the sky and underground, and that's good news. It means we'll keep digging further. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.